start back on the plan, and we've got 1 week to get this done. There's a few things just I'd like to bring out. Like we talked about, the basics of the plan that the mayor proposed, the last proposal on, well, she made it twice, I believe. March 31st, she re-proposed it. We don't have a lot of disagreement on the basic numbers that are in there. It all comes down to how we handle this either sunset clause or this other clause that we were talking about that affects it in there. I do think we wanted to add some things to our plan, which if you want to add them, I will make sure that Perry gets them in the ordinance so that it's clear that what's different from what we actually looked at before. I just want to go through these things. Some are doable, some will take more time to study. A number of them are doable, but some of them may just be a little bit, to try to do them in short order, we might be biting off more than we can chew. But let's talk the first thing with the entertainment tax that we talked about. Okay. And you might want to write some of these numbers down along the way, but we were talking like somewhere between a 3 and 5% entertainment tax. And Mr. Kohler, I want to look into it a little more again before we would make something final if it was in there. Maybe it's running a little higher than that now. A lot of cities have been raising things, so maybe it's instead of on the low end of 3%, maybe it's 3.5% as the average, or 4, or whatever. But that's part of where we've been behind on some of these things. We have not raised some of these rates that we should have been raising all along. But conservatively, if you would go with 3% on the theater entertainment tax, we figure it would generate at least $15,000 a year. Could be more, but I think, like everybody's been talking, we're using conservative numbers, and that's what Mr. Kohler said, that he couldn't really break it down as far as Massillon exactly because the corporation owns more theaters than just Massillon, but just trying to carve it out a little bit. He estimated that it'd be $15,000 or so.
Is he just looking at the movie theater?
That's movie theater now. You can make an exception for nonprofits, so we wouldn't have to do something to the Lincoln, and we wouldn't have to do something to the Massillon Tiger season tickets, or anything like that. I'm just saying it. Well,
why wouldn't?
I don't know. Well, we'll have to talk about that. But if you want to do that, and then maybe ask them to vote for some tax or something, it might not work so well. But it's things we can talk about, okay? And then the other one is you ask about the cable franchise fee. It's not an entertainment tax, it is a franchise fee, I believe. I have this paperwork, and maybe I'll have Mary Beth scan it and email it out to you. There was a change in the way the state does this stuff back in 2010, and this, they have this, let's see where, describe this thing. Part of the video law. They did away with franchise agreements, and they put in video service percentage, video service fee percentage, and it's got the same guidelines as what we're talking about, the 3%, the 3.5%. Well, no, it's a maximum of 5. Currently, it's 2.5. So if we're talking 3%, it's below that number if that's what an average is around. But that's something that you could look at, maybe 0.5% if you wanted to go to 3, or even something else. And I believe this is a pass-through type of fee that it goes directly. They pass it directly to
that was
the
my
users.
question. How does it get collected?
Yeah, they collect it, they bill, and then they send us the money, I believe is the way it
Gotcha.
happens, okay? And first quarter,
Right.
it was like $47,000. The increase would be something over, I believe, it would give you like another 9,000 maybe per quarter for a total for the year. He gave me a rough total of like $37,915 for the year that it would add revenue-wise.
But that's only taking the 2.5% to
That's
up.
taking it to 3.
But by law, we can go to
We
5.
can go to 5.
So why would we not do
But
it?
again, we're taxing
Well,
ourselves.
I just want the
You're
numbers
taxing
back.
disposable income, you're not taxing somebody's food on their table.
Yeah,
We're taxing
but-
the citizens.
Yeah,
Everywhere.
100% of people have cable television, or 99%.
I would not
So-
vote for
so?
that. It's not worth $37,000.
But, well, that's what I'm saying. If it's at 47 at 2.5% and you double it, now you're looking at $94,000.
Nobody's going to want to live here. Don't you understand that?
Can't tax everybody to death.
Let's just.
You know, people want services, they gotta be willing to pay for them somehow. And if they don't,
We
if-
do. I pay $200 a month to cable. I don't really want to pay
You don't,
anymore.
you know, people can decide what they want to do as far as cable goes, their bills, but I'm just saying that's a way to generate income that does not go to the ballot. Somebody doesn't have to do $200 a month cable. I mean, there are different things to do. I mean,
Yeah,
I
take
just,
my business out of town, I could do that.
do what?
I could take my business out of town.
You could.
Go somewhere else, my cake, my.
You could.
Yeah, well, that would help a lot, wouldn't it?
But that
Nancy,
company
you
would
just
be,
don't wanna raise
that
tax on
company would be
anybody.
affected as well.
Why don't we look at making cuts before we start looking at charging?
You have to do
citizens
both.
for
You
everything?
gotta do both.
Well,
Not
I
one's
haven't
not
heard
gonna do
any
it.
cuts yet.
Okay,
That
that's
was the plan.
just information I brought forward. We'll go through it again. The Red Center, we talked about that. I think there's one that probably what we're talking about may be too big of a bone to chew on in the period of time we're talking about here, but I think it should be part of our plan to at least look at it over the rest of this year and see if there's something that can be done. Just like Mr. Kohler made a point, more communities are consolidating rather than splitting it off. It's just Stark County has done a rotten job of doing it. We were promised that they've been talking about consolidating that with the sheriff's department, and they would save us $250,000 a year, but it's not happening. It's just not happening. But still, the movement is to consolidating 911, not splitting it down. We would have to have at least 3 employees. If you did all the dispatching for us, police and fire, you'd have to have at least 3. Pardon me?
I said, we don't know that, for
Well, I
sure.
don't know how we would do it, but
Well,
anyhow, we'd have to have some employees. I don't think we want to use police to do dispatching. But that's one it's kind of a tough one it's to get at. The other one was talking about the police department and adding people there. I guess there's been some conversation with the police chief and what they're going to do down there. Myself, the way I look at this, whether you pay time and a half or you pay new employees, a lot of times that works out to about time and a half. That's the way it used to be when I was at Hoover. If you don't do something with minimum manning to change the hours that you have to man, then you're not going to gain anything. That's just kind of the way that, in my mind, would work. You have to have some reduction in what minimum manning would be, because that's forcing you to bring these people in to work the hours, so you have to be able to reduce the hours. Otherwise, you either fill it with the staff we have and pay time and a half for the overtime, or you hire new people, and new people get a salary plus fringe benefits that quite often it adds up close to time and a half.
Yeah, but it wouldn't add up to $600,000 worth of overtime.
Well,
You add one person per shift, and it wouldn't come near that.
but you
And
can add.
see, you're getting your overtime minimum manning, because every shift is scheduled short.
Mhm.
It's scheduled short. If you had enough people there, you wouldn't have to do that. I mean, I think you're gonna play help getting rid of minimum manning in the next contract going around. I think this is something that would be easier to do. I mean,
Okay.
you know, I don't know what the fully loaded cost of 3 new officers would be, or if that would even be enough to do it. You know, if you got to do 6 new officers, well, then maybe, you know, you're probably right. I don't know what it would take a number of people to do it.
We can put it in our plan and have it looked at.
Yeah.
Well, the mayor said she's meeting this week with the police chief to talk about the performance audit, and that will be part of it, so I think we should wait and see what she comes up with.
Okay, and the other one was poll tax, somebody brought up, of charging utilities for their poles in our right-of-way. And Perry sent him some stuff, and I don't know if anybody got it at home or not. It was looked at in the past. It's kind of a muddy thing, but we could ask him to give us a report on it. See just what it would amount to, if anything. Came up about a fire extinguisher fee. I don't know this is secondhand. Jim Johnson says it's a no can do. This is state statute that bars us from doing that on the extinguishers. And then the other one was the health department. We're in the second year with the contract with them. The first year was $28,000 per year. Now it's up to $35,000 a year. Plus we pay $1,200 per month. Utilities, that takes us up to $49,400 per year. The cost of housing the health department in the facility it's in right now. There's a lease that expires the end of August, 1st of September, something right in there. And there's an option if we would like to take up to another 5 years, or maybe even negotiate the number of years, but that's what the cost is right now. And the health department, if you look over the last 10 or 12 years, they're probably in about their 6th facility right now. They were in here, then they went in the basement of the Shears building, they were in the old Packley Funeral Home, then they were in the building up by the hospital, and then down here where they're at now, so somewhere around 6 different places they've been over the last 10, 15 years. Yes, sir.
Paul, aren't they pretty much self-sustaining though?
Yeah. They cost the city about $300,000 a year.
It's not general fund money, I don't believe it, but
In this report right here, it said $326,000 a year.
Is what it's costing the city.
That they get,
I said that maybe including salaries. I don't have the numbers in front of me.
Yeah, that's including
That may
salary.
be including salaries and.
Is that all general fund, or is any of that offset by WIC and the other?
It says in 2014, we will pay $275,000 in personal services, 102 in fringe benefits, 102,000, $275 in contractual services, and $3,725 in materials and supplies. So my thought would be the investigation would see if we save on rent, that money that we're saving, if we could apply that against personal services.
that free weather money out there in other areas.
But then how much would it cost to refurbish the senior center to accommodate them?
We would have to look at the build out, but that's why my calculations only ever took 4 years, not 5. Assuming that by the time we got out of the lease in 2014, and the months that we're not, paying the lease, that money would actually probably go towards the build out. Does that make sense? So you wouldn't really see any savings this year. It might take halfway through 15 before you start seeing the savings because of things like moving expenses and building out.
is there enough room down there?
It's a
The average-
3-story building.
No, but the senior citizens have called and they said they use 2 stories.
That's a story.
Hmm?
It's a big story left. I mean, one of those stories is pretty large.
The health department doesn't have that much staff.
They do use a lot of space because they have waiting rooms and clinics.
Nursing.
It's worth looking into, getting some real numbers on, I think, and seeing if it's a viable option. I personally just don't understand why a community that is in fiscal emergency, and we're talking about cuts and tax increases, would ever pay a lease to house a department when they have space. It's not like we don't have the
Well,
space.
and we talked about moving the seniors down to the rec center, and nobody moved forward on that. See, we talk a lot, but nobody takes the responsibility to look into these things, so.
Well, I don't remember that conversation ever officially happening on council floor.
Yes, it did.
You
Because
mean it's
we
the
got
rec center?
calls. Yes.
Well, then if that's an option, put some numbers together. I mean, I don't want to be rude, but we have, when you talk about something, when you bring up an option, when I bring up a thought, I have some numbers. Let's put some numbers together and see what it can happen, and if it can happen.
I know it was discussed at the November 2013 Park and Rec meeting that was at the senior
So
center.
maybe that's,
It happened there during that November meeting, because we toured, the Park and Rec board toured the senior center, and that is when the seniors were there in full force to protect their building. But I wasn't on council then, I don't
yeah,
remember.
I could be wrong. Maybe it was at the Park and Rec board meeting, since I went to
Both.
yeah.
Well, let's decide if we want to add them to whatever we plan we are doing. That's what, and they don't necessarily have to be implemented, but if they make sense in the end, they may save us money in some other area. I think we should definitely look at the entertainment tax and the what was it, DSP again? No, the cable TV.
Video service fee.
I believe it's admissions fee, and admissions tax is what it was actually called.
Yeah, on the theater, it would be an administration tax.
Admission tax.
I'm sorry, I wrote administration tax, admission tax. Admission tax. So, are we gonna look at the part on the cable TV and get an idea or not?
My
You said
humble
that's-
opinion, I'm not in favor of that.
Well, there's gonna be a lot of people that
A lot of
maybe
people
aren't.
won't pay for the premium.
One thing Sharon said, I think it was Sharon, I think all of these ideas are good that we're actually talking about them. Considering the timeline that we're on for passing a plan, I don't know if we want to hammer them out now. Like she said, we can continue to do things, whether it's making the cuts or increasing revenue that are not in the plan. It seemed like she encouraged that, obviously, for us to continue to work outside the plan on those type of items. The fact that we have about a week and a few days to get another plan to the commission, hopefully approved, I don't want to say not waste our time, but these are ideas that are fairly new that we're talking about. So I don't know if we should include them in the plan. With that being said, again, I won't be here Monday night to vote on anything, so you may say my opinion's not worth anything, but I don't know if maybe we should focus more on what we have in front of us and getting those things hammered out, since we've talked about them. Like I said, I think these are all good ideas that we need to, pursue, but for the matter of getting a plan back to the mayor, back to the administration, back to the commission in the next week or so, I don't know if we're going to hammer out the details of these other items.
And I agree with you. And if you think about what Bob Yesner was talking about, this was more relative to the income tax credit reduction, how you would time that going away. We talked about when you generate a certain amount of revenue, or no matter what it is, by increasing revenue, reducing expenses, or a combination, you could make some things happen there. So, we could come up with our basic plan, and as we develop numbers to see, you know, maybe the things we're talking about generate numbers here, that we might want to back some of the other stuff out of the plan that we initially submit. Not to say we can't do this. Is that where you're going with this? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I'm just looking at, like I said, that, you know, we have a week or so to get another plan
Right.
together to administration and to the commission. And although I think, like I said, these ideas are all good, and we definitely need to pursue some of them or get the numbers hammered out. I don't know if they're ready to be part of a plan.
The only thing, I'm sorry, the
No,
only
go.
thing I want to add is, I agree that they're good ideas, and I definitely think more research needs done, but I go back to going to voters in November, and we're going to have the street lighting that's already taken effect, we're going to have the tax credit that's already taken effect, and I'm afraid if we have too much happening prior to the November vote, it could backfire that you tax me here, 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 and now you want to permanently tax me. Again, it's perception. That's all I'm saying is, if our biggest revenue generation is going to come from passing the ballot in November, then I think we need to focus on that and not put this out of sight, but, you know, put the committee together and move that forward so we can show the voters that if we get additional revenue, we can take the tax credit down. You've already passed the income tax levy. That's all my way of thinking is, I don't remember if it was Sarita or Nancy that said, you're just going to tax them to death. I'm just afraid they may say that in the poll.
And to piggyback off you, Michelle, maybe these things such as entertainment tax and cable fee should be Plan B.
Exactly.
So we focused tonight, like Andrew said, on cleaning up our plan. When are we getting rid of the tax credit reduction, if that's a thing? What are we actually going to look at with the income tax increase? Because it seemed like Mr. Gessner said, and the mayor said a little bit, if we make it cleaner, it might be more able to be passed by the commission. So maybe we just kind of keep these things on the back burner and Plan B. If the income tax increase doesn't pass, then we got to look at other ways to get revenue and keep cutting. I mean, I think we could still be looking at them and getting numbers, and we should be working on that throughout the year so we have it ready if we need it. I agree. You know how because the entertainment tax, I think it's a good idea. I think, but I don't want to keep taxing and adding all these fees on people.
The smart play, in my opinion, would be, I mean, we had mentioned briefly, Megan had said something about maybe going with the 2%, that the 0.2 would not, you know, capping at 1.8, putting the 2% initiative on the ballot, everybody would pay at least the 0.2. The 25% credit reduction would go into effect immediately and would remain in effect until the ballot initiative passed. If it failed in November, you continue to do the 0.25%. And then we can attach to our plan, almost like an addendum or an appendix or whatever, of this list of items and say, this is the Plan B that we are going to continue to discuss and put hard numbers to in case it fails. If it fails in November, we have this grouping of ideas that we're still trying to formulate and put together. I think that'll show it's bona fide because we're giving things first reading, we're moving forward, we're showing a commitment to the passage of one plan. However, we're also showing a contingency plan. Hey, if it doesn't pass, we're not going to just sit and wait and see what happens. We're actually working on something just in case.
And also, if we go that route, if the income tax increase doesn't pass, that income tax credit is
Stays
still
there.
there. It stays there. And we'll still have that revenue. I don't think anybody really wants to see that happen, so we're going to have to we really have to work together to pass the income tax increase. Because as Nancy pointed out, we haven't had a real income tax increase since, 1976 or something like that?
72, I think.
So, yeah, somewhere in the 70s, long before I was born. So,
Oh, please.
we need to, we really need to look at that, I think.
Well, that's a selling point, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's 3 members of council that weren't even born the last time the income tax.
Oh, just rub it in.
I'm not trying to rub it in, I'm just saying that's how long it's been.
That's a long time for a city. And Nancy pointed out, we've been doing pretty well. If you look at it that way, we've been doing that pretty well.
I didn't include Shaq, so I don't know if he's quite there or not.
I was born in 72, thank you.
He was walking.
He's old like the rest of us.
And it seemed like the commission seemed to swallow that plate a little better, that idea.
I think that we need to focus on the committee for the levy.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily have to name names, but I do think we need to have a timeline to have it in place and to show again that we're serious about doing it.
I think it'd be great when it comes to forming the committee that we maybe we have a couple chairs and different members. I mean, you don't want to get too large. You do want to keep the group somewhat intimate and working with it. But I think we should look at something where, you know, council either sends a couple representative council members, or maybe they, you know, recruit a couple people that they know are really good and really involved in this kind of thing. Maybe the administration puts one or two out there as well that would come on board, that they know are really good at this kind of thing. I don't know, anybody else that, I don't know if the commission can recommend anything. I don't know if that's outside of their purview. The auditor's office, the auditor, everybody just kind of says, you know what, this guy's a great guy. I recommend we recruit him and get them on board. This woman has done a phenomenal job. And that way we get buy-in from all departments, and it's not one person.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead.
Off the subject. Michelle had said that the fellows from Aqualife was going to be here tonight, so they're not here, right? And I just wanted to discuss something very briefly. I just feel like this whole thing was, I mean, we are not in a position to negotiate with these people. Okay, the way that I think it should have been done is they should have had their law department or their lawyers or whoever should have come to us with, or should have come to the administration with a purchase agreement written up by their attorneys. And then that should have been negotiated with our administration, which would have been the mayor, the law department, community development. When that all was negotiated and decided, then is when they come to council with a contract or a purchase agreement, and I think they should bring about $500,000 down payment with them when that time comes, and that could be put in escrow. But for them coming, they keep coming to council and talking to us. We're not in the negotiating business. We are in the business of once the contract is put together, we vote yea or nay. We don't negotiate with them. At least that's the way I was always taught of how a council works. Now, maybe some of you disagree, but I think we've been wasting a lot of time with these people, having meetings and talking to them. And I just wanted to bring it up to council.
I did talk to Mr. Hurricane today, and neither him or I have had any contact with them since last Monday.
Okay. But they should know that. I mean, I don't know why they keep coming to our meetings, because really, unless you people know something I don't, but that's the way we were taught when I first got on council. We had to go to school in Columbus, and that's the way we were never involved in any kind of, that's the mayor's job in the law department, right now. I just want to get that out there.
Sorry, Nancy.
That's all right, I'm finished.
Tony wasn't here to remind me.
He's here.
Well, he didn't remind me.
You know you were in charge of him, did you?
Well, we either have to overhaul our plan and put in some of these things we've talked about, let them alone and figure out what we're going to do with this tie-in between 1.9 and the tax credit. So we have to resolve it. I think we're foolish for not entering some of these things. It just makes no sense to me when I look at a plan that's just loaded with stuff from other cities, and we don't have all those things out there and researching them and having them brought to us.
Well, but they said, the commission spoke fairly clearly tonight that just putting things on there that don't have clear numbers or clear implement dates don't do anything for them.
Well, no, wait a minute. We have two here that have clear numbers.
Well, then we
as
can
far
put
as
those ones
close
on,
as close to anything else we've got, we have a couple that have numbers on.
Well, then we can add those ones, but the ones that we don't have numbers for, then those should probably just be left as an appendix or something. I don't, you know.
I mean, none of this stuff is really palatable. We're not excited about doing any of it.
Oh, no.
You know, that's not the most exciting thing that we want to do is start raising everybody's taxes. fees and everything else, but I mean, we have to do something.
Didn't we agree
And we
that
can't
this is
just-
all added on ours?
We have all
Yes.
that on there.
Well,
But why
that's-
can't we add some of it, some more to it that isn't on there?
But didn't the other point they brought up was they didn't feel, whether it was a miscommunication or not, that council was gonna follow through on a lot of these. And just from the very small discussion we've had about the tax on the cable or the entertainment, I don't know if we're all on the same page about a lot of these right now. And not to say that we may not in the future, but I tend to agree with what Michelle said, and Nancy and Sarita too, in the sense of, we just keep talking about taxes, and if we're gonna make a very concerted and focused effort on the income tax, we may not need the entertainment tax or the cable. So, I don't know, I guess that's.
So then you don't do anything about it. They
Well,
just, they set deadline on the
I agree
sheet
with
of paper.
Andrea in a point though, where she's saying, we keep looking into these things, but, you know, they told us specificity, clarity is something they're looking for. So, like, for example, the health department, I think we really do need to look into that, but we don't have any solid real numbers just yet.
Well,
We
you
have
don't
to-
know the build-out cost.
Yeah, we don't know build-out costs, or no, so we add that to an appendix, like, we're looking into this, we're working on this, but it's not technically part of the plan yet because it's kind of really up in the air. And they said some of that stuff that's really up in the air, they didn't really like, because they can't, you know, it's not gonna, I think it's what they said, is, I don't know if you can clarify this, it's not gonna sway them either way, because there's no very real numbers yet. It's a great suggestion, but without us showing them this is the exact numbers, it's not gonna help make them make their decision. Is that what you guys are trying to say? Yeah, okay. So adding it in there, it's like, yeah, they know we're working towards it, but without any solid numbers, it's not gonna help us.
Well, we have someone.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree with that. I'm
And
just-
I mean, I don't think we can be afraid to put them in there and discuss them. You know, we're working towards it, okay? And it's not going to be resolved Monday. You know, I mean, we have to have a plan to put together and stuff, but I just think, to me, just throw about everything out there. Sure, I agree to focus on some. The income tax, obviously, and the tax credit are two key parts of the thing.
Can we back up a second?
Yep.
If we backed up and took the mayor's second plan and said, okay, then the commission would agree with that?
We don't have any reason to say either way.
I mean, we can't say for sure.
There's a
they would,
person from the
but
commission here.
I
Can you
would
answer
assume
that?
if they had a recommendation of the mayor, it would go a long way. And she reiterated the plan on the 31st of March.
That she would okay it if we took the sunset law, correct?
That's what she said today, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And then all of this would be null and void and we'd go.
We're just spinning our wheels, we could do something with that part of it. That's that tying into the 1.9. If we just do something with that, it sounds to me like some of the people on the commission, they would be satisfactory.
But that's where Megan, her point comes into play. It takes and gets rid of the sunset provision on the credit reduction, but still allows the people that are impacted by that to have a voice on some level. They could vote yes on the income tax increase, which would then effectively decrease that credit reduction by a little bit more, and take it down, to just about 10%.
Yeah.
Or something, and so it's just a way that we still safeguard, because we gotta remember that there's always that threat of a referendum if we don't put some kind of tie in there that allows those people to feel like they get to participate.
Okay, I was just gonna say, last time we didn't ask the mayor for her opinion. Instead of saying what she's gonna do or what she's not, let's ask her.
I would like to offer a suggestion, is that if you want to continue to look into those items, I would just put it down below. We are going to look into this, and this. And because we know that the plan works that I gave you, and you can still look into that. So it's just a suggestion, but I think that would be helpful, that if something would fail, you can have that to fall back on.
Well, I guess our other question is, Nancy was trying to get at, was when I said earlier, what I proposed earlier, say, implement tax credit reduction now, immediately, as soon as we can, at 75%, we'll get that revenue. If the income tax increase passes it, what if we keep it at 1.9 or 1.95 or 2, maybe we look into that, so we have to do a little less. And that tax credit reduction then ends when the income tax increase begins. Would you support that?
I think that the people that live here and work elsewhere need to pay something.
Well, that's, we would keep the cap at 1.8, no matter what. I think council would agree with that 100%. We would, any increase would be above and beyond the 1.8% cap. So it would not be 100% anymore. But what we're saying is, it's, I don't know what the actual math would be. So it would be 75% of 1.8 right now, as soon as we pass it. And then when the income tax increase, whatever we decided would be, it's at 1.9 now, but you know, if we remove the tax credit a little bit more, maybe we need to bump it up to 1.95 or 2 to get a little extra money in, then the cap would be at 1.8 across the board, not the 75% or the percentages. It's just gonna be 1.8, anything above 1.8, those working outside of the city would pay.
So everybody pays the increase.
Everybody would pay the increase,
I
yes.
think we need to run the numbers
Yeah.
through Laura and look at the numbers.
Not through Laura. I don't know if we ran that through Laura yet.
No,
Yeah,
we,
she-
the administration ran it through Laura.
She's still been doing this
Yeah.
before.
Laura.
No, I mean, I don't know if that plan, we haven't
Oh,
ran
no.
that.
No,
plan
no,
through.
that's what I'm saying. I'd like to run that through Laura and see what that looks
But
like.
when we put it on the ballot, Ken gave us all those numbers, because that's exactly what it.
Yeah, but that was at 2.1, if we go down
That's
to
right,
2.
that was
So what if we
I mean,
know
I
what we
think
did?
it'll be equal. I think if we can go with what numbers, and I agree, we need to have Laura put the real numbers there. But I think it's at least gonna meet the current plan, if not exceed.
Because we know what we get at 1.9, what would we get at 1.95, and what would we get at 2? And would that make up the, what is it, 555,000 that they're looking at for the 75% tax
It
credit?
would more than cover it.
Yeah, would that more than cover it? Because then everybody would pay the increase, and the people outside of the city, we would still be paying into the city. It just wouldn't be all on the people outside of the city. And I think that's the part that council really has a hard time with. And I think that's the part that the citizens have a hard time with. And, you know, we have heard the grumblings and rumblings about the referendum, and this county is very well known for that. But I think if people have the right to vote and know that that tax credit reduction would go away if they vote to increase the income tax, that's, like Ed said, that's making themselves heard, that's giving them the right to vote on it in a roundabout way, I guess, but it's still giving them the right to vote, and the referendum issue would probably be quelled.
Well, I don't know that for certain, but, I mean, it's a good thought.
I mean, it's a way for us to kind of try to sink our case.
The other thing I'd like to have you think about is, I would not be in support of putting 45% in police, 45% in fire. Streets I may be open to, but those dollars need to go to the general fund so we can utilize them as we need to. I don't think we tie them up in police and fire.
That was in the language that Perry dug out. We actually took the police stuff out of the last.
I don't think anybody's married to that.
Yeah, that's definitely.
So,
gonna be
and all
another
Perry did
conversation.
was take the old ordinances, give them to him, and then you're supposed to correct them to what we want.
So I'll tomorrow and get them to Perry so that we can have clean stuff by Monday. And I'll make sure Mary Beth, when he sends it back, we can just get it out to the mayor, the auditor, and everybody on council.
My other suggestion would be on the street light. We did have 10% set aside for improvements and infrastructure improvements, and I'd like to see that back in the language.
So 10% of all revenues through that.
What was that?
It's for the street light utility fee. Our language, we wanted to have 10% of that fee would go into an account just for infrastructure improvements, because we need to switch that over in the future.
And what's that on?
Improvement of what?
It's on improved property is what we suggested, yes.
We'll leave the same language on that, I'm
You
sure.
said 10% of that would go to what?
It would go to an account for infrastructure and capital improvements, so we can switch to LED lighting in the future, or whatever lighting is the new technology at that time.
I just wanted to point out, and I'm purely making estimates here. I'm not going to be a math wizard. But if the increase to 1.9, the 0.1 increase, generates $840,000 a a year. You go to 2.0, that's another 0.1, so that's doubling that 840. So that would make $1.6 million a year. Now, we're at 25% credit reduction. At the 0.2, you get about 10%, so you're a little less than that. You're cutting that number by a little bit less than half. So you have reason to be about 250. So the whole would be about 1.85 million approximately. I bet you that's what Laura will come back. And the current plan only generates 1.35, 1.4. So we're going to possibly generate a little bit more money. And it's a very positive, to use your word, it is a positive. It actually incentivizes people to want to vote for this.
And if the income tax increase fails, that tax credit reduction is still on the books unless council chooses.
It's not coming off
to move it.
automatically.
It would not
Correct.
come off if it fails.
It would,
But I like because that 35% of the people will want to support it until other people to
and
support it.
Absolutely.
like we said, like I've always said, I believe it probably represents close to half the voting population.
Sure.
Yes, because in my household,
Well,
for
half the
example,
voting
my husband
households.
pays city taxes, I pay county tax. I would vote for the increase because either way, I'm going to pay to the city
Just
on
like
top of
you
it.
and your
But,
husband.
you know, I have my say.
I don't pay, I work in Jackson.
I-
I mean, I pay for here, but I don't pay for there.
Should
that's-
clarify that
okay.
statement.
All right, I forgot.
I paid it
You're in the
full.
township.
Thank you, man.
Okay, never mind, I got it. Yeah, the numbers are right. I mean, those numbers would surpass what this last plan was with the, the 1.9, the street lighting fee, eliminate the educational stipend and reduce the income tax credit. Doing those things you're talking about would generate more money.
And it is going to cost those
Like
people
$300.
it is going to cost those people working outside of the city more upfront, but that's all the more reason for them to kind of want to.
Okay, all right, now we're talking about implement the 25% income tax reduction, and what do we want to say in this language now?
Well, you would say that it would end upon the passage of the income tax increase of, that's what we have to determine. 1.9, 2%, if we want to do that. 2% would more than.
Well, I think upon the passage of a replacement levy.
Yes, I'm sorry, yeah.
Because if it fails the first time, and it fails the second time, and it fails a fifth time, or whatever, down the road, it ends up having to be a 2.2. We don't want this to be,
Yeah,
Then
6
even
years
if
down
it
the
keeps
road.
failing, 25% stays in.
Yes,
until something else comes along.
until the next replacement levy.
One of the income expenses continue to go on, so.
Okay, now what do we want to do on what's our proposal on the income tax proposal, what we want to put on the ballot?
I think it has to be 2% to make it workable.
If we're gonna cover the lost tax credit income, I would agree.
It's in line with other communities around us.
Be a raise of
Highest.
2/10 is what it is.
Yeah.
Every, we've been through this for over a year now, I think we all understand what we're
With the
talking
cap
about.
at
We're just-
1.8 for sure.
Yes.
Good credit.
I guess as a sidebar, Michelle and Andrea, as Andrea kind of alluded to, we are actually going to pull these that we discussed with finance that Perry gave us, that we have some signatures on, and I'll talk to Perry with this language, and then we'll give our verbals to Mary Beth to get it on the agenda for Monday.
Okay. We're going to implement the 25% income tax reduction. That would end if we pass the income tax. Perry, I'm gonna let Perry worry about the language too. And you're talking about 2%, raising the city income tax by 2/10 with no credit on the new money, right?
Yeah, cap at 1.8.
Cap credit at 1.8%.
We might be able to get some of those old people who worked out of town on the last one to work on this one again. So we need some.
I don't think I want to call them old people. They're called-
No, they were only old because they're already there before. Not their ages.
Not
That
age.
wasn't,
The previous.
I mean, the old committee.
The
Oh,
previous
oh,
committee,
okay.
not elder age, the previous committee.
Is he on the floor?
No, we moved to
I
God.
want you to know, I did not say I supported 2.0. Just want to go on record here.
Yeah. But, okay, and I understand what the mayor said there, but what we did change in the plan is we didn't tie it to the income tax.
Correct.
We are proposing passing the 25% credit, and it will stay in place until,
I think we should get the numbers from Laura as well.
yeah, we will.
But I don't think we want to risk not having administration support going into a levy.
Well, that's
Yeah,
part of what we have to
I agree.
consider on everything
I
here.
mean, at 1.9 though, I don't know if the 1/10,
It won't work,
we're gonna have to see Laura's numbers.
not if you want to reduce the income tax credit at some point. in
Maybe
time.
we should look at 1.95 as well.
Can I ask you why you're so against the two?
I think
I
it's
mean,
going to
it
be,
made us even with Canton.
Too hard to
I think it's going to be very hard to sell even at 1.9. It's going to take as I talked before, a united team to get that done. And I think 2.0 is hard. I know 2.1, the chamber was not behind it, the businesses in our community weren't behind it, and so that's a big concern.
And the 2.1, I did hear about 2.1
Yeah,
from
that
people.
was wrong.
A lot of people said they would have preferred if we would have gone for 2% than the 2.1, and I did hear it from several businesses. I won't say several, a couple. So
Well, if we
maybe
go-
just being no higher than 2% makes it more palatable, I don't know.
If we go 1.9, not 2%, and hold the same course of action, we would only generate probably about $125,000 to $150,000 a year approximately in the credit reduction, which would be about a $1.6 million reduction over the course of the entire plan, which would leave us about $2 million after 5 years. Again, rough estimate.
I'd like to see the numbers on paper.
Yeah.
So-
Because it's a very valid point. If the mayor's not going to get on board with this, then we put ourselves at a severe handicap.
Other than that, we're leaving the plan alone, right? The rest of the plan, those are the only two things that,
I think,
I
yeah,
mean, we're already preparing legislation to put street lighting on. The agenda.
yeah, I say we take what the mayor suggested and like Andrew suggested, we should still list, like afterwards, like, look, we're working on this, 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 and this as well. We just don't have any numbers.
It'd just be like an addendum.
Yeah,
They still haven't listed.
this isn't officially part of the plan, but we're researching it, we're talking about it.
Other pieces to look at.
You know, entertainment tax, I think everybody thinks it's a good idea, but we haven't had a chance to really talk about it, do the research, we've only talked about it for 1 week.
It may be time to revisit our hotel tax too. I mean, there may be a lot, you know, we were,
county tax.
we were low on our building fees. We may be low on all these other things that we're talking about, but we should be a higher percentage of the average, you know, of other communities. You know, I'm looking at going to a hotel here next week that's got a 9% tax on it.
But can we put a municipal tax, or is it a county tax?
We have a municipal.
Do we?
Yes. Yes. We have a bed tax that the hotel pays, and they pay $54,000 this year. They started at 35, and now they're paying like 54. So I still, what do we want to do here? Do we want them to run the numbers at 2%,
Have more vote.
and we're at 1.9?
1.95?
Yeah, do 1.9, 1.95, 2.0. I would add, you might as well, I mean, for comparing them.
Yeah.
So we know what the effect will be if the tax credit reduction goes away. I mean, if it goes away and we don't have enough in there, then either that or, yeah.
Because essentially, this is the plan as presented to us. I mean, at 1.9, all we've done to adjust the plan is say, well, if an income tax passes, then the credit reduction is reduced even more. That's all we.
Well, you can't hardly do that with 1.9. We don't have enough revenue.
It's my feeling, but we'll see.
You're just throwing that in there, and it's not even worth considering.
Yeah, it's not enough revenue.
So now we're back to what you want to do with what that is.
I still think 2% is solid. It's in line with the communities around us. It's not,
We won't be the highest.
it won't be, and we're also, remember, we'll be operating on 1.7, 0.3 is direct to the parks.
I'll get the numbers run and we'll have Mary Beth send them out. And there's no sense in getting the legislation until we get these numbers. So we have to have the legislation for Monday night.
We'll probably have, I'll tell you, I don't think this week I can meet again. This is a
We
really
have
bad
no
week for
choice.
someone in my
We
vocation.
got no choice.
I'm busy every night.
You know,
I'm kind of occupied at the moment. I'm not trying to be.
Can we come to your church and use the place after you're
well,
done?
you don't have to be there at every meeting.
I don't.
Realize
I
that,
don't.
you know.
But he is chairman of the finance committee, so it is kind of.
Well, first of all, the big change, one big change here is we got off tying into the income tax period. That's, I want to call it a concession or a
Compromise.
compromise. We've looked at that, we agree. But, you're not realistically going to go back and look at this and take it away because there's not going to be enough revenue if you don't get the income tax a little higher. So, run 'em. What we could do is if we're not making any other changes, have those numbers run, get them out to everybody, and we could probably handle it before Monday night's meeting and still have it on the agenda.
Make sure we
We do have a meeting for the CDBG Monday, so we could, go at 5:45 or 6 o'clock or something like that, and get back together for one last look at this.
Yeah, you want to do that at 6 o'clock Monday, get together to look at this, and then 6:30.
CDBG, if we need a little bit more time, we'll probably have more time after CDBG.
Yeah, that won't take that long.
Yeah, that sounds like a plan of action.
All right, 6 o'clock Monday.
Make sure we also put that appendix or that statement that says we're also looking at other.
I'm gonna put some up on it, but if we don't like a Monday night, we'll scratch them. Just scratch them out.
Sounds good to me.
6 o'clock.
And we all lost about 20 pounds.
Time we wanna go Monday? 5:45 or 6?
6.
6, okay. 6 o'clock Monday. I'll talk to Perry and explain what we're trying to do. We'll send the numbers to Laura Brown, get them back. And the only thing, she's got everything else priced out in the mayor's proposals in the past. All she'll have to do is, first thing, we got off of the tying into the income tax credit. So all we have to do is get the numbers on the 1.9, 1.95, and 2%, and decide Monday what we're going to do. And I will add an
Have the numbers